Hello and welcome to the Bones Horror Podcast. This is episode 72. Drag Me to Hell. What can I say about this? That an old lady's late with her payments and goes to see the bank. The assistant there wants to be assistant manager and to prove a point says, no, you're not having an extension on your payments. She really does regret it. So
even though she was doing her job.
She was doing a job, but she could have said yes. You can have an extension on your payment.
That'll be the third extension.
Yeah.
Sorry, I feel passionate. Sorry, I'll let you continue.
Ewan, you're not like you don't loan people money or anything, do you? Or
not personally, no.
No,
not after university.
It seems a bit harsh to, free. I expect at least 10 times before you get your house possessed. You would have thought, or I don't know.
I do feel quite sorry for it. I feel quite sorry for her. Like, yeah, maybe, I don't know, maybe a bit of a slap on the wrist. Like, that's a bit mean. Maybe not getting dragged physically to hell.
Yeah, it's quite a disproportionate response.
She was quite unpleasant about it, though. There you go. Anyway, here we are again. Saturday night. That's 2 in a week, isn't it? It's crazy. We've got Larry back with us, which is great to see. Ewan's with us. And I'm here. No Jess. What is going on? Hopefully back next week when she's got internet. So this week I have been... What did I do? I went to watch football. My team were rubbish again. We had a bit of a good run. They were rubbish. Didn't watch much films, really. Not many films at all since Tuesday night's episode. And that's about it. Larry, I'm sure you've got lots to say.
Well,
I know you've been busy. We know you've been busy.
I've been, so I've basically been filming. So it's all been like kind of planned out for a second half of the film, essentially, because it's going to be much longer. So it's just trying to, get everything filmed. I think the hardest thing, which is the first time I've had to personally do it like properly, other than like, oh, can we come back for a day and get some footage, but the trickiest thing so far is just making sure that everything looks the same as it did, or the continuity is all the same.
Normally you have a continuity person, wouldn't you?
Yeah. So we do have that. What I mean though is that just like where certain scenes are, without, I guess, giving too much away, but where certain scenes are kind of being tailored to fit the story and, push the characters forward, it's just making sure that everything comes out looking like it's one whole film. Don't want like one part looking like, well, what the hell's that scene? So, but yeah, other than that, haven't watched too many films. I mean, I did watch a film today, Spider-Man, because they've had a big old mess up on their end, so it's now on Internet Plus.
Oh really?
Major mess up, I think. So I think they're gonna push the digital.
Yeah, Internet Plus is quite popular though, isn't it? So it was
I've seen like sort of like clips on YouTube where they sort of like, it's clearly just someone with a camera just like this,
Yeah. Well, no, literally, I was halfway through the day, I believe, and I was like on my phone scrolling through. After it was on the computer as well. And I scrolled through, and I think it was on Instagram. There was just like memes of Spider-Man and just constant, but all of them were saying like, when the film gets leaked early. So yeah, it's mad, but yeah, that was good fun to watch. But that's about it.
It wasn't a sperm bank, was it, Dan? So
yes.
Dan's works at a bank, and he wouldn't extend any of our loans.
I wouldn't be surprised.
I'm not sure on a bank though.
I definitely wouldn't deserve a loan.
What have you been up to, Ewan?
Just the usual, really. Just sort of watching,
Reporting from the
writing.
Ukraine or anything like that? No?
What? Sorry.
Reporting from the Ukraine? Or...
No, unfortunately, that avenue has been rejected to me.
Oh,
as
no.
much as I want to go to Ukraine at the moment. Although I am going to, or planning to go to Poland in at the end of May.
Wow.
Hopefully, by that time, Putin wouldn't have invaded Poland by then. I mean, I probably wouldn't go if Putin invaded Poland.
Yeah.
I'll be honest, but
I'd be
Yeah.
very surprised if he did, and then you went, "I'm going to Poland."
I'm going to Poland. I'm determined to make this wedding. But yeah, but no, yeah.
Well, Putin is a big fan of the podcast, so you never know.
He listens to it all the time. He's gone through the back catalogue. Actually, he started at episode 1 and he's just catching up.
He's personally mad at me because of my comments on like James Wan.
Yeah.
He absolutely, they're his go-to.
Yeah, you really bit yourself in the arse with that one, Larry.
This is when he is watching. It's just like,
yeah. I'm also, which is unusually for me. I've met up with a few people, and I'm sort of like entering a sort of Dungeons and Dragons situation, and I mean that literally. I don't mean there's like a, you know, in a metaphorical sense. I'm actually going into a sort of Dungeons and Dragons troupe, and I'm sort of my sort of homework is to sort of like create a character for myself, which you do like via a kind of, there's this app called like D&D Beyond or something. And I think I'm going to go for the tiefling, the tiefling or whatever. Just like one of these, like, I don't know, that they're kind of like humanoid creatures who are like, is like despised by everyone. I was like, yeah, I'll go for that. I'll enjoy that.
Who's doing your D&D? That sounds cool.
Oh,
D&D's always good fun.
Well, it was weird because it's like it's someone who I met up with. He was a friend from school who I hadn't seen in about 8 years, and his girlfriend. Weirdly, his girlfriend also lives in Sevenoaks, and she is the sister of one of my brother's best friends. But I've never met that person before, so it's a weird sort of complicated.
Yeah.
Like, we sort of like, yeah, exactly, yeah. And they said, "Oh, do you want to do D&D with us?" I was like, I mean,
I've played it once.
Yeah. I've played it once with you, Lawrence. Actually, you did the game. I mean, I have very little memory of it, other than you actually drew the characters, which we were destined to play. I think.
Yeah, I did. I remember that. I mean, to be fair, I was all over the show anyway. Like, I'm not the best dungeon master, but I do love a good D&D session that's like a proper session where you can return to the game and keep returning to your characters. I know that is basically what you do, like mostly all the time, but I know that some like will have just a quick session and be like, yeah, we'll leave it. But yeah, sounds cool.
Hello there, listeners. I have no fucking idea what's going on at the moment.
To be honest, Kev, I have very little idea either. Yeah. I've gone into this with very little clue about what I'm doing, but I'm sure it'll be fun.
Yeah, it is good fun. It's just like a role-playing game and all that. It's really good.
Is it on a board? Is it?
Yeah, you can do it different ways. Some people like you can get like models and you can make your own kind of campaign, or you can follow, you know, books or other people's campaigns. It's really good fun. It's just there's a lot to it. To explain it, we'd have to change the name of the podcast. The D&D podcast.
Yeah, it's quite time consuming, I would have thought.
Yeah, there's a lot that goes into it. A lot. Dedication.
So, Drag Me to Hell. 2009 film with a budget of 30 million and a box office of $90 million. Most of the budget was spent on the goat scene. So I'm looking at $28 million on the goat. So it's directed by Sam Raimi, and the Raimi brothers actually wrote it.
Yeah.
It starred Alison Lohman as Christine, and Justin Long, who's great in most things I see him in, from Jeepers Creepers and things, as Clay Dalton. Now, this film I've watched quite a few times. It never gets boring. It is just scene after scene, isn't it, of madness, pretty much. And there's quite a bit of madness in there. Yeah, and I just want to know your thoughts on it, guys, really, because I think I talked myself out on Tuesday, and Ewan did even more talking than me. And I love this film. And I love the eyeball scene. I love the end scene. And obviously, I've got questions as ever. I'm not sure I quite believe this could be real, to be honest.
If it is,
Is it based on a true story? I'm not sure. But it's a little bit far-fetched. Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So, have you seen it before, Ewan?
I haven't.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like Lawrence should kick this off because I feel like
Yes.
one should start with the positives,
Which is rare.
before the negatives.
Some of the special effects aren't that great.
Yeah, or at least they've dated. They've dated.
Yeah.
Since,
And I think they couldn't have looked great at the time, really. So,
Yeah,
Larry, kick it off. What interpretation is there, or what?
So, well, this one's quite just like, for me in anyway, like cutthroat in the sense that that
Dan's
yeah, I was just gonna say that that was where my pause came from. Yeah, so it's very cutthroat in a good, to me anyway, in a good way, because I think the premise from the opening scene from the little kid kind of sets the tone of like, oh, anything can happen in this. Like, she isn't, I mean, from the title alone, I think it's quite obvious. I am going to just put a spoiler just in case you haven't seen it. But yeah, the ending, obviously, like, it sets that up to say that this could happen. Meaning, like, it's not going to be a film where it's, you know, oh, we know that they're going to be all right, and oh, it's just going to wrap itself up nicely. But I also think it knows exactly what it is, which I give it huge credit for, because I think Sam Raimi, especially coming from like Evil Dead and stuff like that,
Spider-Man.
Yeah, and which was interesting because it was written 10 years before it was made. So Spider-Man, the trilogy, I think, is what made Sam Raimi go, okay, we've got to put it on hold. I'd say that, like, the criticisms, if I have any, genuinely, have already been mentioned. It's just some of the effects are a little bit, but then I watch Evil Dead and I look at those effects and I go, you know, they look cheesy, but that's kind of what makes it. One of my favorite bits in this is that she gets a nosebleed, but it's like an epic nosebleed to the point where she sprays all the blood on her boss. And she's just there like, I'm sorry.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like that was reminiscent of me in the classroom a lot at school. Just bleeding everywhere from my nose.
Start of the day. Just But no, yeah, it's good. Oh my god, yes. Sorry, that was a gif of
put on Garth Marenghi gifs. Yeah.
We got to talk Garth Marenghi later, so yeah.
I bloody love it, which was annoying because, like, I was having to film, obviously, so I missed the podcast of it.
Well,
Jess is in the
pub watching it. So,
I thought that said helium in the pub. I was like,
she might well be on the helium.
I was like, helium in the pub.
I like that. That's like an enigmatic statement, isn't it? Or it's like a code word, a code phrase, like spies use.
What? Hello, I'm in the pub.
No, helium in the pub.
Helium in the pub.
Yeah, that would be a rubbish spy phrase. Hello, I'm in the pub.
Yeah. Meet at the door, just like, how do we know where the contact is? Like, special phrase. Hello, I'm in the pub.
I'm in the pub. Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's really good. I don't get me wrong. I don't think, like, I wouldn't go as far as say, oh, it's a masterpiece, but it's one of those films that I've watched. I watched it, I think, when, like, I think it was from Blockbuster, if I remember. Rented it from Blockbuster. And it was one of those films that when I watched it the first time, again, without spoiling, sadly going to spoil it, sorry. But yeah, the ending where she's dragged literally on the train tracks is by like, I don't know. That scene alone makes the film for me, where I'm like, yeah, that's just, and Justin Long's impression, his reaction, just that one scene that could have been a short film in itself.
Yeah. Who had the button again?
Well, Justin Long did, because she left it
at the end.
in she put it. It was in his car, and he keeps his
I thought
coin.
she stuffed it in the lady's mouth. Or...
Yes, but she stuffs Justin Long's coin that he puts in an envelope in his car.
Yeah,
generally that is it. She picks up the wrong envelope, and it has Justin Long's favorite like lucky coin in it. So that she gives that, and then he takes the envelope out at the end, and then it's like, yeah, this is your button.
Oh dear. Oh, Jess is sending photos now of food. Yeah, thanks, Jeff. So let's just get into it, and
yeah,
I enjoyed it. I loved the special effects. Some of them look a bit dated, but it's great fun. You can't. I'd put it on every year. I think my son didn't watch it with me, but he needs to. My 13-year-old, I think he'd love that. So we need to get onto that again. But yeah, I can't really fault it. So I'm really interested to hear Ewan's opinion on this.
Brace yourselves.
Okay, so
it's going to be a bumpy ride.
So I'll start off with my positives, just to say, is that I didn't completely hate it. In that I do think Sam Raimi is a very proficient writer and director. I think there were lots of surprises, lots of things that I just didn't expect. The jump scares were done quite well as well. I quite liked how it sort of he sort of pauses a couple of seconds before the jump scares happen. So the thing happens and then it goes, and I think that's quite effective, because I think it sort of, without being wanky about it, it's sort of kind of almost like represents how the brain processes that sort of information, because it's not like bang bang, it's always like bang, ah! That sort of reaction. And I quite enjoyed that, those aspects of it. I'm trying to decide whether I found it boring or not. I'm not sure if I did, but I did go to the toilet twice, and it is like an hour 36 or something. So I was actually quite surprised that this is like one of those scripts that took about 10 years to produce, because I just didn't feel like there were good moments in the script. Like I especially enjoyed the dinner scene. I thought that was written quite nicely. Although to be honest, I kind of expected a lot of that. Not so much like the eyeball in the cake, it was sort of. I quite like the awkwardness. I quite like the setup that it's meeting the parents, and she's plagued by these spirits that try to torment her and stuff like that. And I quite like dinner scenes anyway, because I think they sort of inspire that kind of awkwardness, and I quite enjoyed that. But I feel like there's just so many points where it was like, oh, you think this happened? Oh, let me show you why it didn't quite happen the way you thought it did, and it's sort of trying to sort of rack it up. And I'm quite baffled as to why it's been so critically lauded, because it's fine, it kills an hour 40, but I feel like it takes all the usual steps of a sort of in order to make up the formula of a horror movie. I feel like it takes all the standard steps in order to achieve it. I'm on I'm on a sort of rejoined Letterboxd, the sort of social media site for logging and films and stuff. And I was sort of scrolling through people's positive reviews of it, and a lot of them were saying that they found the ending really, really surprising and shocking, and they didn't expect it. And I was like, but don't all mainstream horror movies do that sort of ending?
Were they were these reviews like recent reviews, or are they old reviews?
Oh well, they weren't like proper sort of print reviews. They were just sort of like
people,
someone's watched it and
yeah,
but from critics, not from Joe Public.
Because I just wonder like if maybe if they're old reviews, is it like a thing where people with that when it came out were kind of like, oh, I didn't expect it like that? Because I know Sam Raimi didn't do another horror after Spider-Man until this, so that might be why.
Maybe it's just it was that thing where it's like I suppose it's kind of surprising that she ended up with the button and ended up being dragged to hell. And again, as you say, I think it was shot and directed quite nicely. But I don't know. I was like, oh, she's safe, even though she probably isn't. Oh, she's not safe. Okay. And then they come up with this elaborate thing between sort of like this button and coin, which I mean, that's another thing is that I honestly couldn't distinguish between when it was being cheap and being funny, which I think is kind of crucial because I think also this is in some ways I think this is a film for people who like or have watched a lot of similar films like that. In that, I think there are probably lots of in jokes that I just didn't get, or it certainly felt like that. And I gotta say I didn't find it overly funny. There are a few moments of Justin Long which I quite enjoyed. And to be honest, I haven't seen Jeepers Creepers, and the only thing I've seen Justin Long in is
you haven't
is
seen
Dodge.
Jeepers Creepers?
I haven't, no.
That's like an amazing film that you should definitely watch.
I will definitely watch it. But Justin Long, the only other thing I've seen him in is Dodgeball, where he plays a sort of really nerdy teenage high schooler. And it's quite funny. And I did find the scene where he goes to the sort of the kind of like the seance-y place, the spiritual place where they read your future and stuff like that. And he was pretty much me in that situation. It like really skeptical, like, and just like really confused as to why he was saying the stuff he was saying. But I think what I didn't like about this film, and I think this is what dates it, and I don't want to be one of these people sort of like wanting to go against Sam Raimi for the political things, but I don't know. I feel like the kind of the sort of gypsy witch trope is quite I found it quite uncomfortable because it's sort of I don't know. There's a sort of very kind of politically uneasy sort of feel about it, and I feel like the woman who curses. Right. Okay. Well, sort of start off with the main character works in a bank who loans to a loan bank essentially, and she wants to get ahead, as you said before. She wants to be the assistant manager. And she wants to impress her bosses by being more ruthless in her way. And so she decides to decline this loan from this call her Romani woman. And this Romani woman has had loans twice before. Even if she's declined the loan, she can go and move in with her sister. So in any case, I think she on balance she'd be okay if she didn't get the loan. And that's part of what annoyed me is that it wasn't so much that I feel like I can't remember her name now. The main character, was it like Charlotte or something? I can't remember. But anyway, she's essentially doing her job. It would be a different story, I think, if the Romani woman was if it was her first time there and she's trying to get a loan and main character is like no because she wants to be ruthless. I think that ups the stakes a bit, but because she's been there twice before, I feel like it's not a traumatic or tragic enough story to sort of justify the enormity of the punishment which it goes through. And I think and I would only say this with these sorts of horror movies. I think the sort of kind of mainstream horror movies is that the formula tends to be is that there's guilt or trauma involved in the fear, essentially. And I feel like the guilt element, I mean, firstly, it's a very just sort of going back to the race element, I feel like it's a very white movie and very sort of very much like tapping into very white anxieties. Oh, there's this woman who's like grabbing at my dress, and that sort of thing. And then there's, and I just felt it's kind of only focusing on that sort of anxiety. And I feel like, and considering the fact that the main character, it seems like the biggest trauma she's had to face really is being overweight as a teenager, and that's pretty much it. And she's had no other kind of trauma for it except for when this happens. And I'm just sort of like, I don't know what there is to care about this character other than
I'll tell you.
Yeah.
When she's in the mud, I cared for her a lot. Yeah, I was like, she looked great in mud. Like, I've never thought that about a woman before, really. Never really watched mud wrestling or anything like that. And I was watching it, I thought, yeah, she looks great in mud. So for me, I cared a lot about her. Ewan, so
I had the same thing with the gypsy woman when she was in the car and looked demonic. I was just like, banging! Wow. What a good look. I was like, yeah. No, but
we lost two listeners then. Oh my god!
Really?
Oh, I can stay out of the mud wrestling, right? Okay.
My bad. I do see the way you're coming from. I think for me personally, and maybe it's just because when I first watched it, like I was a bit young and didn't really think about like, the things, the concepts, like characters and the motivations and stuff. But I think for me personally, and I wouldn't say that this is like correct, it's definitely just a personal opinion, but I quite like it that she does nothing really that bad and that she just gets absolutely like the biggest middle finger you could get from anything. Like, it's not like you're cursed and you're gonna experience some horrific things. It's like you're cursed, and after 3 days, you are physically gonna get dragged to hell. It's like thank you, I'm gonna quit my job.
Very harsh. Very harsh.
But that's what I love about it.
Yeah, but this is another thing, right? Is that I wonder if this was meant to be an all-out comedy, because I mean, behind the scenes, I think Sam Raimi actually wanted Edgar Wright to direct it, or he approached Edgar Wright to direct it, and Edgar Wright couldn't do it because he was doing Hot Fuzz. But but that suggests to me that it was meant to be a lot funnier than. I mean, again, this is personal opinion, but I actually didn't find it all that funny. I think I laughed a few times, but I'm not sure if they were entirely intentional. I mean, I pretty much laughed a lot during the goat scene, but I think that's just because I find goats. I think goats just look really funny.
I don't find that funny at all, Ewan, to be honest.
Really?
You can't be laughing at goats.
Why not?
Do you know what I mean? That's probably where my goat ended up, in all honesty.
oh God, yeah.
So, like, I'm watching it thinking that potentially could be little Barry or whatever his name is, the goat, right? And he's ended up...
Little
so
Barry,
this is your goat that you were essentially given, not really.
Yeah, that was apparently sent to Africa, but no, it got diverted onto the set.
Diverted, as if it was ever going to go to you.
Drag me to hell.
Yeah, got dragged to the set.
But it's just
bad CGI.
Yeah, and it's just. I mean, that scene was. I mean. It's funny trying to sort of navigate the humor and the horror. I mean, that's a classic problem with sort of comedy horrors anyway, is that they often lean one way more than the other, and it's often a bit difficult, which is probably why Sam Raimi approached Edgar Wright, because Edgar Wright does it pretty well. But it's just in that scene, just every time the goat's head popped up, and it was just like between two people, it's just like this. sort of looking around. And I just burst out laughing, and I was just like, I don't know if that's intentional.
Probably, yeah, it's a good point. It's a good point though, because I do agree with you. I do think that the reason they looked into Edgar Wright is because they probably off of Shaun of the Dead looked at that and went, really decent film. It balances the comedy, but then when it does want to, it's like, okay, this is horrific. Like these are zombies, like whatever sort of thing. So I think that, yeah, I do think that it was originally probably designed to be kind of more leaning with Shaun of the Dead sort of themes and like tone. But again, like I said, I still really like it. I think, like I said, there's films where you can, like, again, Evil Dead is one of them where I put it on and it is what it is. But equally, like, don't get me wrong, if we're talking like what's the better film and like really holds, then yeah, like Evil Dead is going, I think this is just a fun film that you can whack on. And I think that admittedly, yeah, there are things about it which are not how do I say there are just some odd things, like the whole thing with the coin. I was like, couldn't she have just picked up another note? Anything. Like, I love how specifically it's like, that's my lucky coin in the exact same envelope in my car.
She done well to dig that hole.
I don't know if that would actually one thing I do always get confused about with the film, even to this day when I watch it, I'm like, does that count? She gets given, the matey who's trying to help her, and they failed basically like nearly every time they've tried to get rid of this, even with the kid at the beginning. And he says to her, he goes like, look, basically, I didn't want to tell you this, but there is another way you can get rid of the curse. It's like, if you take the item that she's cursed, which is a button on her jacket, and hand it to somebody else and gift it, then they will take the curse. I don't know if you can do that with like someone who's passed away, or do you know what I mean? Because surely they have to accept your gift. If I just shove it down someone's throat in a graveyard,
happy birthday!
That's
here's
not
my
accepting it at all, is it? Yeah, you're right.
No,
exactly.
Not
accepting it.
But again, this runs to my point, is that I feel like it wasn't very precisely scripted, or it wasn't sort of. I just feel like they wrote something. They wrote, then they were like, oh, where did this lead? Then they sort of try and resolve the problem in a bit of dialogue. And then go back to it. And then there's another thing about this film is that I feel like it's pointless watching it because nothing is ever achieved, if you know what I mean. I feel like the most that's achieved is that she kills the cat and then she's let off for a bit, and then that's about it. And that's pretty much her only achievement in the whole film is killing a cat. And I'm just like, I don't know. It's a bit. I mean, obviously, that's a common thing with a lot of great films as well, is that characters do things that don't affect it, but that don't affect the plot at all, like sort of classic examples of Raiders of the Lost Ark and stuff like that. And nothing they do is actually impacts the plot at all, but you can still enjoy it as a movie. But I feel like when you can see that as you're watching the film, I feel like that's not a great. I don't know. It's sort of and again, going back to what I said before, I'm very surprised that this took 10 years. And I'm sure they weren't every day writing the script. I'm sure they wrote this script 10 years ago, and then Sam Raimi had to do Spider-Man, and then they found an opportunity to do it. But again, I'm still quite curious as to why this has gained the amount of attention that it has. I mean, I can only guess that Sam Raimi's name has a lot to do with it, but it, it premiered at Cannes Film Festival. And I'm just
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and I'm just like, why? I mean, I don't want to be snobby, and I am snobby about these things. Let's face it, but I just sort of it's a confusing one for me.
Yeah.
Okay, so we do you want to move on to bonus?
Sure.
Yeah. I'm going to give it 8. 8, I think. Enjoy it. Can watch it over and over again. She looks great in mud. It's got goats in it. It's everything I want really from a movie. So I would highly recommend it. Brilliant. So, Ewan.
I'm gonna give it a 5 because even though I didn't like a lot of it, I still think it was shot well. I thought some scenes were written quite nicely, and it is broadly entertaining at times. I did sort of, I think about halfway through, I was just a bit like, okay, well, they're just going to run into another situation, but it's sort of fine. I'm not sure if I'd go back to it, so yeah, I'll go 5.
Larry.
A solid 7 for me. I really enjoy it. I think again, the only reasons why I wouldn't rate it higher is just because looking at like all different film like and horrors that I've watched, me personally, it's definitely it's up there as like it's a really good watch, and for me it's a good film. There are like things about it, but for me they don't, like, other than the CGI in some points where it's like, all right, they clearly like this was like what they wanted to push it forward, rather than like practical sort of things. But yeah, no, I'd say a solid 7. I think it's really good. I think I just think it's a fun time.
Okay. So, enjoyed by you and I, and you in about average, really. Like, not so great, not so great. Have a think, Ewan, about next week's pick, please. I think it's,
okay.
I think it's your turn.
All right.
Well, you got a little while yet.
Okay.
have a think. Anyway, let's move on to Dan's hot pick. Makes me laugh every time.
It's good.
Now, so Dan recommended we watch Climax. How long ago was that? Was that 2018? I've got something in my head.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I bought this, Dan.
Great.
Yeah. So I bought this. It was only £3 on iTunes. So I started watching that last night. I'm watching the first 45 minutes last night. And it's quite funny, this. So the first 45 minutes, there was a lot of dancing, a lot of decent music that I liked. And then I stopped it. So at this point, nothing kind of bad had happened. I was just being entertained because it was very, very good. The characters were all likable, like they were all quite close and quite believable. But they all got on, and they were, I don't know, did they work in a theatre or a dance?
Yeah, sort of dance troupe, isn't it?
And and they all kind of lived together there, and they got a DJ, and there's a very broad mixture of people there. So I watched that, and then I'd had 4 beers, and I had to get up quite early this morning, so I turned it off. And then today I finished the other 45 minutes, which was like it made me feel quite dirty and things by the end of it, in a way. It took a turn. So, spoiler alert. I think their drinks, I've got questions, Larry. I think their drinks were spiked, are they?
Yeah. Yes, with LSD.
Yeah. So, I don't know.
That's the assumption anyway. Yeah.
I don't think LSD, but from how do I say this? I know lots of people that have taken LSD, and I didn't think it would do that to you.
Well, it's kind of like hinted at that the whole punch has been fully laced with LSD, and it's obviously like spoilers again, but it's revealed that it's the short-haired blonde dancer, the tall dancer who has done
the one that pissed herself.
I'm trying to remember. I'm trying to think.
Yeah, last time I saw it was like a year or so ago.
There was a girl who just she was the first one who just kind of started weeing.
She's the really tall girl. She's a really tall girl with like short hair.
I think
I'm trying to remember. I would just say
the
name. I would just say name, but the names I generally can't remember. But yeah, she it's hinted, especially. I mean, there could be obviously other stuff that she's done to that, but the heavy implication. But yeah, no, I love this film. I think what it does so well.
Yeah.
What it does so well is it, because it's interesting you said as well about the characters all get along, because the first I did promise. I did promise.
Dan's just said evil Ed, Larry, you promised.
No,
we will get on to that in a minute.
But yeah, no, it's interesting you said that the first half that you watched, they all get along, because in the first, I want to say after the video interviews that they do, they all bitch about each other horribly for like a good 25-30 minutes, to the point where it's like they're a dance group, but they secretly all don't. They all have their opinions, and I think what's so good, and obviously, is after that first half, the titles start. 45 minutes, 80 minutes in, the titles start, gives you all the characters, all the actors' names and stuff, title and all that. And I think that's kind of perfect for the film, because the film kind of goes, cool. Well, this half, we've set it up, and I've heard people in the past when they've watched it say like, "Oh, the first half an hour is really boring," and it's like, well, I would disagree, because I think what the idea is that it's very clever, because they don't really have any standout personality traits, any of these people, when you're hearing them speak to each other or on the interviews. But then it's done really well, because they are, but it's like being planted so subtly, like, oh, this person doesn't like this person, and they think that they're like whatever, and you kind of just go, okay, fine. But then in the second half, where it all goes tits up, those emotions come out in a much more violent way, and I think that it just doesn't hold back. It literally, like you said, it makes you feel sick. The colors used are fantastic. The shots and some of the how they actually move the camera. And yeah, there's some scenes in it which I think if you were to verbally say, I think it would put people off, because there is a lot of shit that goes on, which is not nice. But it's
there was a scene with the girl the woman who brought her son, and she locked him in that room. Basically, there's like a plant room or something. So there's a big electrical board in there. Big old 3-phase board. I know this. This is what I do as a job.
You gonna
I don't think from experience, I don't think it might have knocked him out, but I don't think it would have taken all the power out. But basically, there's a scene where all the music, because there's like a DJ, there's like a little dance hall, and they're all dancing. There's a DJ decks and all that stuff up, and all of a sudden, everything goes down, and all the lights go off, and you only got emergency lighting. So there's like the red light, isn't it? So basically, they're insinuating that this boy has stuck his fingers in the electrical board, but that's taken all the power out, which it probably wouldn't do, to be honest. It certainly hurt him, pending where he stuck his fingers. Anyway, but that scene, when she just locks him in there, is horrible enough. And you get that feeling he's going to stick his fingers in there, because she closes it up. He wants to get out. He's probably had LSD as well.
Yeah, I was going to say he's heavily on LSD,
so
because
he's been smashing it. But there's plenty of, there's the woman who straight away gets accused, and she's the pregnant one of and I really wanted to see more of her, to be honest. But like she gets accused of it, and then she starts losing the plot, and she starts stabbing herself, and then punching herself in the tummy, and she's pregnant.
But she gets kicked. She gets
kicked by the girl with no hair.
If I'm again, I'd have to double check, but I believe that she's the only one who hasn't taken LSD, because she knows she's pregnant, and
she's got bun in the oven.
she's only told one person, and because that they are all on LSD, they end up, it gets spread around, and because she's not on LSD, her character is almost targeted by everybody else. Not every character, but a majority of them, because it's how how they're reacting to it.
But that is extreme, isn't it? What she ends up doing if she isn't on LSD? Because I was thinking maybe she has taken it, because her reactions to everyone saying "do it, do it, do it." Obviously, there's a mental health thing there, but like she slices her face, she slices her arms, she punches herself. What happens to her?
Well, so the film opens with her resolution. So that's the very first thing we see, is her running in the snow at the end, getting out. But if you rewatch it and pause it on the interview scenes, there are a bunch of VHS tapes on one half, and there's a bunch of books on the other. And if you do research into it, there's a book there specifically called Suicide, but it's essentially looking into, like, I think, and it is a touchy subject. It is. But I think in the terms of the film, I think her character, because she becomes like the biggest target. She gets kicked. So this person basically who's on LSD doesn't like her, and she finds out she's pregnant. And so she decides to kick her in the stomach. I think it's more than once. I think she does it multiple times. Yeah,
absolutely. Three times. Yeah, she punches her, kicks her. Yeah.
And I think for her character, I think it's a thing where those thoughts that's probably how she's been feeling, regardless. That's probably how she views her situation, sadly. And I think that what's very good, but it's not an easy watch. It's not one of those you just whack it on. But
I didn't watch this with the kids, believe me. I didn't put it on with the kids.
No. But
my little one, he's 8, and he liked the music because we listened to the soundtrack in the. I took him out today to get some pizzas and beer, as you do.
Dancing.
So on the way we listened to the soundtrack because I really liked it, and he goes, "Oh, I want to watch this," and I goes, "Well, you could probably watch the first." And at that point, actually, I hadn't watched the second half of it. So
I have to say, Kevin, this is a really weird way to watch this film, because I feel like the first 45 minutes, or at least the first 20 or 30 minutes, is as Lauren said, it's purposely built up so that you're adjusting to the sort of really trippy next half, and for you to watch the first bit and leave it a day and then go back and go straight into the really trippy second half.
That's really exactly how it was to the actual. Honestly, I must have stopped it bang on, because I probably would have carried on watching it last night if that had kicked in, but it hadn't. It was all kind of nice. Everyone's getting along and dancing together and doing what youngsters do, and then bang.
I also thought it was interesting what you said, Lawrence, about people finding it boring at the start. I actually think when I watched it, and I watched it in the cinema, I actually had the same thoughts, because I think when you watch a film by Gaspar Noé, you're expecting something really controversial to happen pretty much straight away. And that's kind of his style. He's a very provocative filmmaker. He's sort of with Lars von Trier. He's the kind of guy who likes to piss off people the most, I think, in sort of cinema terms. And so it was quite interesting in a way. Watching the first one is literally just conversations, and I was thinking, oh, has he turned really indulgent now? And I have to. This was like 2018, and I was much more into that controversial stuff than I maybe am now. And I was like, oh, he's got. And then it goes into this space, and you're right. It's so precise and purposeful to build up this, the conflicts they have. This character get through these characters, and then blows them up once they have whatever's in the punch, and then it's almost like sort of shaking ants in a jar by the end, where they're just all locked into this really small space, and it becomes like really nightmarish, and you don't know what's going to happen next, and it's so claustrophobic. And you almost need to sort of, I mean, that's the great thing about watching it in the cinema, is that when you go outside, everything feels fresh and lovely, and
Yeah.
oh, that sound of birds chirping. Oh, it's so nice.
I'm free.
Yeah, exactly. I'm free.
The dancers, though, the dancers were amazing, weren't they? All of them.
Yeah,
I think
they're fantastic.
every single the couple of the blokes were just out of this world. Like the one who was wearing kind of skimpy stuff, it was amazing.
Yeah.
Was one of the I didn't quite get it, but was there a brother and sister thing going on as well?
So basically, like, yeah, so there's again,
Yeah.
hopefully I get this like on right, or at least close.
It might be a French thing.
So,
I don't know.
Well, so basically, it starts with the sister basically saying how she, she considers herself like she wants to, go for people, or do whatever she wants to do, and her brother is very protective, and that's what you get from the first half, which is almost like he's very, no, you shouldn't be seeing this person, no, I'll, almost kind of a little bit controlling. But then that's what I love about this film, is that in the second half you dive more into what they're really thinking, because it's almost like a shell, that first half of that. People are very bitchy towards each other, but when they dance, there's like this very close connection. Yeah. And it just turns its head, and I think basically it implies that he wanted to fuck his sister.
Yeah.
And I think she probably, because they do end up. Do they? Yeah, they do end up.
Do they?
I can't remember. I remember the incest.
There's a lot.
Yeah,
there's a lot of upside down camera that I couldn't work out. I don't know what that was all about. Yeah, I'm sure you're explaining it, Larry. But
well, no, he just uses this. He uses a crane, with the camera on, to get certain positions, like, to make you feel basically sick.
Okay.
In that first half, when there's an amazing the dance performance, and it just doesn't cut. And I can't remember who it's choreographed by, but it's fantastic. But the camera moves like really elegantly to each performer. But as it goes, then they start, they're on LSD, and you have dancers contorting their bodies in ways where you're like, that's mad. The camera like starts to feel how you imagine they are in the scenario, like you're on LSD, because the camera will just start to turn on its place and then whip over to someone else, and you're just like, this is hard to watch. And I imagine if you were, I don't know, pray to God, maybe not on LSD, but if you watched it on LSD, you'd just be like.
I mean, to be honest, a lot of it's funny though. With I've only seen, I think, 2 other Gaspar Noé films. I think I've seen Enter the Void and Love. But I think in contrast, I haven't seen Irreversible, but I've read a lot about it. But it's a weird thing where I think this is actually one of Gaspar Noé's most restrained films, and yet it's still really digs into you, and it really sort of and actually I think I prefer it to Enter the Void and Love. And it's
Love.
Enter the Void for me
is that the same director as Love?
Yeah. And Enter the Void, Irreversible.
It's just a porn film.
Irreversible.
No,
Love. Yeah. Sorry, I was going to say Irreversible. I was like, that's
yeah. I mean, that was a weird thing with Love, was that it was kind of like, it was one of those examples where he was clearly trying to be sort of provocative, in a strange way. There was a plot, but I don't think it was that interesting, and so he sort of
too many boners for me. Right away. You don't need to the first thing you see is a boner. So I'd accidentally put that on in IRL. You know what I mean?
Is Love the one that was featured where it had someone climaxing? It was put in 3D. Is that?
Yeah. It was. Yeah. Which I kind of I feel like I should have seen it in 3D, because that would have been quite fun. But I saw. I think it's on Netflix now, which is quite risque for Netflix, I think. But it's it was but it's that thing where it's like I feel like a lot of erotic movies of that ilk seem to prioritize the sex over the plot, which I can kind of understand. But it's a bit like Blue is the Warmest Color, which everyone loved at the time. It won a lot of stuff at Cannes when it was like, but I watched it and it's just like watching like a 10-minute lesbian scene, you know, shot very well, but but it's like I kind of want to see where the relationship develops, and to me this doesn't really show that. In contrast, I think actually Lars von Trier's Nymphomaniac is actually does it quite well, despite the fact the scenes are, I mean, as well as really sexual, really horrible at times. I feel like there is enough plot and character in there to kind of justify it. Whereas with like Love and Blue is the Woman's Color, it's a bit, it's a bit gratuitous.
My friend worked on Nymphomaniac parts 1 and 2.
Really?
Yeah, on the sound. Yeah.
Oh,
Anyway,
cool.
that's another story. But yeah. I got a friend who's a sound engineer, and he did work on that. Yeah. He said it was interesting, to say the least. And so was the first night at the cinema and stuff. It's good, actually. I quite like it. Anyway, so climax, I would say 7. It was interesting. I probably will watch it again, just for that first 45 minutes, which I really enjoyed. Not so much the second half. There was a lot of screaming. There was a hell of a lot of screaming. There was a lot going on in the way the camera followed everyone around. It was amazing.
That's a bit like watching Titanic before the ship sinks.
Yeah.
Well, I love Titanic, but only up to that point.
Well, I'd prefer the second half, to be honest, with Titanic. So I'd give that 7. Yeah, cheers, Dan. Now we got Dan's hot pick for next week. Mutant Blast. So again, never heard of it. Looking forward to that one. I presume it's a film.
Evil Ed, by the way. I think I've already seen this. Is this, and because I'm getting 2 films confused. Is Evil Ed the one where the guy works on gory horror films and he goes and he basically gets like obsessed with it and basically turns into a serial killer?
Pretty much. He takes over. He's an editor, but he takes over from an editor who's killed himself. Or I can't remember how he died. But he takes over, and it all goes.
It's because it's a
crazy.
Is it Swedish? Is it a Swedish film?
Norwegian or Swedish? I can't remember. Dan would tell us, but like it was either.
I've got one. I've got one to pose back to Dan.
Okay.
He wrote a minute ago about like French horror. I just wonder, have you seen Raw? It's literally RAW, Raw. If not, I imagine possibly, but if not,
I would have thought he owns that. To be honest,
yeah, that one. I remember I saw the trailer for it a while back, and when it became available, gave that a watch. And that one, it's kind of similar to what we were saying earlier, in that like they go in a lot and they're very. Some of them are very hard to watch, but I thought Raw was actually a really good way of doing a cannibal film without making
I've not seen it
too.
Yeah,
it's not. That's not a spoiler. Like that is essentially the plot.
Yeah.
Is that a character experiences cannibalistic sort of tendencies, but it's done in such a way where it's very realistic. Like how you could imagine, like I don't want to spoil it, but just in the ways that she experiences certain things, it's something that way you could go, this is really fucked up, but it's actually the most realistic way.
Yeah, I mean it's directed by Julia Durkanau. It's directed by Julia Durkanau Raw, who also directed Titane, that won the Palme d'Or recently, and I actually think Titane, which came out last year, I think it's still in cinemas in some places, but I think Titane is actually better than Raw. I really like Raw, but
I haven't seen that one.
Titane's like much. I mean, if you think Raw was like weird and disturbing and dark, Titane takes it to a whole new level.
Right. I like that though. I like that.
Yeah,
I like that. I think as well, like if it serves the plot, it's good.
So as I say, Mutant Blast next week. So I'll watch that. Look forward to that, Dan. Cheers for that. Anyway, let's move on to what we watched this week.
What have you been watching?
No, seriously, what have you been watching?
Okay. As we only did a podcast Tuesday night, just me and Ewan, which was great, Ewan.
It was fun.
I enjoyed it. It was fun. I haven't watched too much. So I have been watching the Twilight Zones, the
Oh.
new series with
Oh, the new series.
Yeah, who was the
Jordan
guy who
Peele.
direct?
Jordan Peele.
Jordan Peele. Yeah. So I've watched, I don't know, about 10 episodes, I think, over the last week or two. So I've just been dropping in on them, and there were a couple of good ones. One about there's a guy who kind of what would you call it in America? He's like promoting people that are running for president. Anyway, he decides whoever's going to be president, they don't become president, so he gets sacked. And he starts promoting I don't know how old he is, probably 10, 11-year-old child, and does get him to president. So I'm not going to give it all away. That was an interesting one. It was very good. And there's another one where some guys are just taken off for a trip to Mars, and just as they're about to take off, there's a nuclear war. So bombs, nuclear missiles going everywhere, all over the planet. So they decide to go on this 4-year round trip to Mars. And that's an interesting one. But yeah, I've been watching that. It's really good. A bit political at times, as you can imagine. But yeah, it's interesting. I love Twilight Zone anyway. I've always watched all of them, and I think there's like 20 episodes. There's at least 2 series of it.
Yeah, I'm actually wondering if it was cancelled actually after 2 seasons.
May well have been.
I think it was. I think so.
Not sure what. It will come back again. Obviously, they do the rounds, but yeah, Jordan Peele kind of introduces them, and
he acts as the guy in the suit who's like,
yes,
you open the door.
Exactly that.
Yeah,
The door, and it's a spiral door.
What was it? Was it Rob Serling who did the original? Is the name Rob Serling? Yeah,
I think so. Yeah,
there's lots of famous actors in it. In each episode, it's someone always quite familiar,
Well, they've had 3 hosts, haven't they? Because it's been 3 incarnations of Twilight Zone. Because there's the first one with Rob Sterling, if that's correct, I believe. Yeah. Then they had the second revamped season, which was done by Forrest Whitaker, and then they did the new season, which is Jordan Peele. My favorite episode of that so far. I mean, I've only seen 1 season of it. I didn't know that there was a second season.
It goes up to episode 20, I think.
The plane episode with them making from Parks and Recreation, I thought was very good, and I think the ending kind of left it a bit terrifying, which I always love when the Twilight Zone. One of my favorite episodes, which has been probably in season 2, they might have done it, so it'd be cool to watch that one. But one of my favorite episodes is that from the old seasons and the revamped season with Forrest Whitaker. There's an episode that's quite famous where a family move into an American suburban neighborhood, and all the neighbors believe that the new neighbor is either like an alien or is a covert spy that's been planted here, something bad. And I don't want to spoil it if you haven't seen it, but just that, for me, what I love about it is there's no real happenings. Like, there's nothing that's like, oh no, there's a big explosion or a creature, but it's all just about the human mind of how quickly people will be like, oh, we have to blame someone for something. Oh, okay. They're like, I think they say that they're Russian covert spies that the Americans have hidden there. So they end up trashing this house. It's so good. I would recommend highly.
Yeah. Although, I mean, I've only watched a few of the old Twilight Zones. I have a general problem with sort of anthology series in general. Like, I haven't, even though I've watched quite a few Black Mirrors, for example, I haven't watched a whole season, because I just have a problem with new stories every hour. So I've only watched a few Twilight Zones, but I think interesting that you said, because I quite like the ones that are sort of, and this is selfish of me, but ones that are sort of psychologically relevant to me, because it's sort of like my own fears and stuff like that. But I think my favorite episode, because I think there's a really cool irony in it, which I won't spoil here, but it's the one with the guy who really loves books. I think it was the first season.
Yes,
and then there's a nuclear
white,
holocaust, and he piles up the books. I won't reveal the ending, but it's such a horrible. It's not bloody or whatever. No. It's just really ironically horrible.
Yeah. I know exactly which bit you mean as well, because when it happens, you're just heartbroken.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, no, it's
So
really
yeah,
good.
that's pretty much. I'll make my way through there, and then there was a new episode of Salad Fingers come out this week.
God,
So there
that's
was
watched
still
Salad
episode
Fingers in ages.
No, neither
episode
have I.
episode 12, I think it was. The Postman. I'm not going to give it away because you need it's 8 minutes. Makes you feel uncomfortable as ever. Yeah, great. Go and watch the new Salad Fingers. American listeners, hopefully you've seen that. I don't know if they would have done or not. I don't know, but yeah, very odd, but well worth a watch. And that was pretty much it for me. So Ewan,
Yeah, I mean, I have watched a few films this week, but I'll just water it down to one. Which it comes out next Friday, Friday the 18th. Over here, actually, I think it's over in the States now. But Fresh, which is a new, it's a debut by Mimi Cave, starring Daisy Edgar Jones, who was in Normal People, and Sebastian Stan, who was recently in Pam and Tommy, but was also in the Avengers as Bucky. Is it Bucky?
Yeah.
I really, really enjoyed this film. It's a horror film, but it's the first half hour starts like a rom-com basically, about this woman who is essentially going through Tinder and being really dissatisfied with her dates. And it sort of kicks off with meeting the first one, and it's this guy who's a kind of like a pseudo feminist who sort of says things like, "Oh yeah, but I think women should be comfortable in dresses. Like you would look really good in a dress right now, stuff like that." Just like really sort of like passively, yeah. And then at the end, she's like, "Oh, I wasn't really feeling it," and he was like, "You bitch," and just goes away. So that kind of like awful, like the sort of state of modern dating in a weird way. And then she suddenly meets this guy in real life at the supermarket, and he turns out to be a really nice guy, and they get on really well. And then I won't reveal the specifics of what happens, but it does turn into a horror movie.
okay.
And I think that flip is honestly, it's one of the in recent memory, it's one of the greatest flips that I've ever seen. I'm really annoyed that, I mean, part of the reason why I'm not revealing it now is because I saw it spoiled in a review, and I was really annoyed that I got it spoiled.
We love
But
twists.
yeah. But it's it made me, it genuinely frightened me. It made me feel sick, and it reminded me. It's funny. It reminded me a little bit of Martyrs. But
I love
and the
Martyrs.
funny thing is that I don't like Martyrs, but I think it really works here.
That's like
sort
one of the
vibe.
only. That's one of the only films.
I don't like
of that
Martyrs.
nature. I think, yeah. I'm like the Martyrs. I mean, oh god, yeah. We did it on a podcast, didn't we? Because I think it was a while back. We did. We talked about it. I don't think we did specifically, but I know we did. We did the. Oh my god, how can I not remember it? The title of it, because there's 3 films. God, I can't remember. It's the one with it's like split personality.
Split.
Split. No, not Split. My bloody. Like again, this is the other title, I think. But is it my? No, that's not it. I want to Switchblade Romance. Switchblade.
Right,
Romance.
yes, yeah, we did that. Yeah.
And yeah. Sorry to cut you off. All I was going to say was that with Martyrs, you get like, I'm not a huge fan of films when they take a route of, okay, this film is going to be about torture, and we're just going to focus on the torture. But Martyrs is one of those films where I think if you're going to do a film like that, follow Martyrs. Like, because it is just, it understands what it is, and it's shot
I don't like
so
it.
well.
I just don't like it.
It's hard. It's hard.
Makes me
like
feel horrible and dirty and like.
But this is the thing, is that all the stuff that I didn't like about Martyrs, it's almost like they did it to my specifications in Fresh, if you know what I mean. They made Martyrs into a film that I would like. Fresh isn't perfect. I think it doesn't quite stick the landing that it wants to, because it's almost like it's a film where there's like surprise after surprise, and it's honestly unpredictable, and I couldn't see. But and then the finale it's kind of dissatisfying, I suppose, because it's a bit predictable. But but overall, I mean, I was genuine, and I haven't been frightened by a horror film in quite a long time, and I quite enjoyed it. It's funny, really, because I was invited to a sort of press screening for it, but I wasn't able to go. I was just too late in RSVPing, unfortunately. But I heard afterwards from various critics who sort of talked about it on Twitter that someone fainted during the screening because it was just so gruesome. It was
Really?
just
Is
yeah.
this the one that's coming to Disney Plus?
Yeah. So it's coming to Disney Plus next Friday. I
wow.
think America already has it. For some reason, they delayed the release in the UK because it was initially going to come out on the 4th of March. But I think I think it's on Hulu in America, and I think it's already on Hulu. But yeah, it's coming to Disney Plus on the 18th.
Oh, I have to get Disney next week then. For a month.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Okay, Larry.
So I haven't watched like loads. I obviously watched Dark Place because it's banging and amazing.
It's banging.
It is one of my favorite episodes. Just that first episode, I love it so much. I love it. There's so many things about it. They're so good.
I like the one with the grasshopper.
Yeah, that's my favorite one. Skipper the Eye Child. Yeah.
I just watched that one. Really,
it's so good. Like, I love the fact, like, can never pronounce his last name, but Richard
Ayoade.
Yeah, Ayoade. I just think what a like, again, most people obviously know him from like the IT Crowd and you know all of that, but I just think in this it's so good. Like, his line delivery in every scene is just you like. And then when he's doing the interviews, is just perfect, of just that juxtaposition of like, I was approached and I said, yeah, go on then. Like, I'll do it. And then it's like 2 seconds later, just like, come in, please. I love it so much.
I also love that, like, I mean, I talked about this on Tuesday, but the fact that Garth Marenghi is framed exactly like sort of William Friedkin. I mean, like, pretty much like when you see William Friedkin being interviewed by The Exorcist, it's exactly the same lighting that's on Garth Marenghi, and it's just brilliant.
It's just very well done, because I think they could have easily tackled that, where they were like, let's make a show where it's like riffing on horrors, but we'll make it a comedy. But I love the added fact of it's an author who's written all these books, who's had his show made, and he's just sat there like as if, oh, I am the dog's bollocks, and it's so good. But yeah, so I watched all of those. I haven't seen it yet, and because it's not out yet. But I am looking forward to X, done by A24, which is out.
It's coming out next week, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah. Really excited for that.
It's out of the cinema next week.
It's next Friday. Next Friday in cinemas, I think.
But yeah, we were talking about plots. That obviously, like climax. Sorry, Larry was in danger zone.
After the first episode, but it's really great after that.
I think he was going to kill you, basically, Larry.
No, I did actually see one. I saw your comment. I think it was like, what is this? But that's the thing. I think the first episode is obviously, I believe that is the pilot. So that's the episode that they obviously shot, sent off, and were like, can we get a show out of it? So the first episode, I can completely understand if you've never heard of it and you watch it, it's like, what is this? But if you stick it out, I just think, I don't think they need to make any more. Like, I know that there's been some talks of returning, like, as a special, but I don't want that. Just
I agree. I think,
go and watch The Mighty Boosh. It's not horror, but it's mental. You'll love that.
It is, like, because that's the thing as well, though, because like Mighty Boosh, I had watched a few episodes, and there's only really one episode that I like from it, because I think that
I like them all.
I don't get me wrong. I understand it fully, and I
Yeah.
think it is a good show. But for me personally, when I got into it, I think it was a bit late. So when I was watching them, I was like, there is a lot of references here that people say a lot, which I was just clueless to. So like, old Greg is
Old
the
Greg.
big. I'm old Greg.
Mangina. Yeah.
I got
all
a
that.
mangina.
He has a mangina.
The fox,
Yeah, Fox.
the drug abusing fox.
The moon, the talking
Yeah,
moon.
the talking moon. So like, don't get me wrong, it's of that same thing, but I think for me,
They're all in it. Yeah, they're all.
Yeah,
in
they
it.
are.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Julian
yeah.
Barrett and Noel Fielding.
Yeah, but
and Mr. Owadi, I think. Yeah, he was in My Spoosh.
Yeah, he's in it.
yeah, he was. He plays one of the like council members.
Right,
Is
yeah.
he? Yeah, because he
I've
plays
only seen
like
a few
one of the
episodes, so I
council-
don't know.
Yeah, it's good.
Man's putting the Mighty Bush. That's a different one altogether, mate.
The
Mighty Boosh.
Yeah. Mate. But no, yeah. So A24 films and stuff. I'm excited to see. I was actually going to ask on the last podcast, but obviously I wasn't there. I was going to ask, have you seen The Lamb yet?
No,
No, and
that's
I
the Welsh
want
film, yeah.
It's Icelandic, isn't it?
Yeah,
I thought it was Welsh.
It's not Welsh. No, they're
not Welsh.
I was gonna say Swedish, but they're not Swedish. I think it's Icelandic.
I think it's Icelandic. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's out on digital now, so I need to. I've been planning to watch it at some point. Yeah.
Is that what
Yeah.
you want to do next week? Is that what you're saying?
The Lamb. Well, it'd be interesting to hear both of you, but it's not my pick. But it'd be interesting to hear
But
both of your
it's up to you.
opinions.
Yeah. So the Mighty Bush is not what you want to watch, Dan. That's like
Yeah,
when
that'll be another Lawrence accident, I think, if you type that.
Yeah,
into
I was
Google.
gonna say.
It's like
Yeah,
when I
if you-
watched Shaving Ryan's Privates by Edge. You know what I mean? So,
Shady.
have you seen
But,
Shaving Ryan's Private?
No.
It's not the one you want to watch, really. You want the one with Tom Hanks in.
Hmm.
So,
Yes,
right. Anyway,
that's actually the reason, Dan, why I thought it was set in Sweden, because
Numi Rapace.
yeah, she's fantastic in it. I mean, again, I don't know if you've seen The Lamb, but I would recommend it. The only thing that I will say though is that it's not meant to. This is, it's just a statement. I think it falls under. Let me put it this way. I think you're not gonna like it, Kev. And I think Ewan will like it because
is there a lot of interpretation?
Yes, the whole
Can we
film.
steer fucking clear of that, then, can't we?
No, it's the thing is that it's hard to explain without going into spoilers. So when obviously watched it, definitely can discuss it.
Am
But
I
I
going to have
think
to buy this? Like the
don't-
Lighthouse, which I actually own.
I think you do have to buy it. I don't think it's available for rent yet.
Anyway, can we talk the Batman quickly?
no, because I've
You
not
haven't seen
seen
it?
it, and I do not
you've
want
not seen
a
it?
single spoiler.
Oh my god!
No, I know I haven't, and I swear if it gets spoiled, I swear because that's what happened. That's what happened with Spider-Man. That's literally what happened because I didn't get to see Spider-Man when I wanted to, and it got spoiled. And admittedly, I don't think the person who, like, it got spoiled of one factor, which obviously, just in case people haven't seen the Spider-Man, obviously there's a big thing that was spoiled, and just from that. I remember having a conversation with Ewan, and I just was able to guess the whole bloody film to the point where I was like, "This got taken from me."
Although I feel like that was a bed you made for yourself because you literally like because I'd seen it. I'd seen it before Lawrence did, and Lawrence literally said to me, "Tell me if this happens."
Because it's hard to explain. Like with the Batman, it's like in this scenario I'm in now, right? With the Batman, I don't think that there will be massive like spoilers.
Yeah.
Like it's Batman. But at the same time, I want to go into it not knowing a thing. Like I've only seen the trailers, and I'm like, cool. But similar with Spider-Man, I was like, I have some theories, but then one of them was just like, oh, this happens, and it was like, thanks Thank you. And so when I was having the conversation with you, I was fizzled out. I was just like,
yeah.
Does this happen, Ewan? Like everything in my head that I was waiting to see, I was just like, yeah, go on then. And yeah, I ended up watching it in a way that I didn't originally want to watch. And yeah, like I still loved it. But I think anyone can agree that if you're really excited for something, maybe it's not a film, but whatever. And then if it just gets completely like shafted, you're just like, so yeah, I'm excited. I've heard all the reviews. I think I posted one which was like a 9 out of 10, which said like it's fantastic, which it doesn't surprise me. I mean, just some of the shots in the trailer that car chase, I haven't seen it, but that car chase in the trailer looks fantastic. And apparently it's all practical. There's no CGI in that. So I'm like, what the fuck? Cool. Yeah. I'm excited. But yes, I'm gathering that, but everyone loves it. I'd be very surprised. I'd be surprised.
Yes. I well, love is quite strong, but I really enjoyed it. Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's amazing.
Yeah.
For me, it's amazing. I can't even believe that bloke was in the lighthouse.
Yeah. The thing
he really did drop his standards for that.
I think what always makes I think you're the only person that I've ever met that's turned to the lighthouse and doesn't like it as much.
I like the lighthouse film with the English fellas in and the Welsh fella. I prefer that version.
Everybody, do not go and see that one. It is
please do.
Just,
it's amazing.
Robert Eggers. I feel so bad for that man because that film is just like like again, the actors who are in that version, I think are good actors, but it's like it almost wants to be the lighthouse, but it didn't have the budget and it didn't have the freedom, so it was a straight to DVD, shove it on a streaming.
Don't listen to Larry's shit. Honestly, he just loves this American lighthouse. It's bollocks. Watch the English version. Much better.
This is where everyone who's a Robert Eggers fan is just there. Like,
I don't even know Robert Eggers is.
Well, there is the biggest problem. if that's the opening comment, then yes, you're gonna struggle with the Northman. What's the other one he's doing?
I will watch the Northman though. Nosferatu.
Remake of.
Yeah,
that's Robert 100 Eggers. Years old, isn't it?
Yeah. Robert Eggers is doing I think Anya Taylor-Joy is in it, and also I don't know.
It's going to be a silent movie.
No, I don't believe so. I don't believe so. I mean, I'd be shocked if it was, but then Robert Eggers, I wouldn't put that past him.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's quite interesting that he's specifically Nosferatu as well, not Dracula, because obviously the original Nosferatu, which I think came out in like 1917 or 19 or 20 something, it was taking the exact story of Dracula, and it was almost I think it was almost lost as a film because the production company was sued because the Dracula people essentially came in and tried to sue him, and then Werner Herzog remade it in the 70s, I think. So it's quite a sort of, it's interesting that Nosferatu as a sort of brand is quite a German. So it is quite German, and so I'll be quite interested to see how Robert Eggers tackles that, because it's sort of, I feel like it's almost, I don't know a whole lot about German culture, but I feel like it's ingrained in there. It's like the German Dracula, basically.
It's a great film. It's a great film.
I think though that it will be done well, because if there's one thing that you can give him credit for, is that he's a perfectionist in that. Yes. The history and everything has to be absolutely so on point.
Yeah.
So I just hope Lighthouse is Nosferatu. Yeah. No. Yeah.
Man, this is a confused podcast basically from day one.
I am excited to see if Nosferatu though is done through A24. I don't believe it is, similar to the Northman, but the Northman looks way more towards a more, I don't want to say generic, because that's not the word I really want to use.
Just more mainstream.
It looks like a mainstream film, and that's my only issue, is that I think, and despite if you do or don't like his films, I think that Robert Eggers through A24, I think I don't know, his style, he has a very unique style, and I just hope that in The Northman, and obviously we'll find out when it comes out, I just hope that can translate over, because I'm just a bit worried that with The Northman, it looks just like Conan the Barbarian now, which is mad.
What else did he do? What
he did? The Witch. He did The
I like
Lighthouse.
that. I like that.
Yeah, that's the thing. What I think is
it as well. I think
it does have goats in it.
Yeah, it was.
It was
quite memorable.
I think there's like
again, maybe my goat became a kind of goat actor who appears in various films.
That's what you paid for.
Yeah, so, he wasn't slaughtered.
No,
but Robert Eggers, I think, from The Witch is renowned for saying like a comment which I see pop up a lot especially in like A24 groups, which is never work with a goat. You can train a dog, but you can't train a goat.
So, yeah. Okay,
yeah,
so that is there's a series of no Nosferatu. Okay,
no, yeah. So Dan's just said Nosferatu. It was, I think it is Joe Hill. So Stephen King's son.
So I've read it and I've watched. I don't know if it got cancelled or not. But yeah, I remember watching the series on maybe Stars or something like that, and it's decent. Very good book. But not Nosferatu. Totally different. So
yeah.
Right, we need to have a think about next week if we are doing Lamb or whatever.
I think you should say yes, because Dan actually put in a comment saying, "Let's confuse Kev." Yes, there it is.
Which is bang out of order, I think. Which what am I going to say? Like, I've kind of know a little bit about this film that a lamb is born, but it has human traits. Is that right? Am I?
Yeah. I'm not going to reveal too much. All I'm going to say is like the trailer is only part of it. Okay. And
well, I wanted to watch it anyway, but if I come back next week more confused than ever, and I've got to watch this other thing,
I want to put a bet. That if I come back and say what happened with that ending, I know
you don't have to. You can come up. We can do it another time, Ewan. It's
no. How about we do Lamb next week, and then I get to
you get another pick.
Well, I feel like
we'll be doing Dynasty.
I feel like we've gone on a narrative arc here where we have to watch Lamb, and I feel like we have to give a payoff here.
I mean, the only other thing we could do is if we did double bill as well, like two films, because then Lamb is obviously very out there. So then if there's a film that you have in mind that I imagine,
well, the thing I have in mind is quite out there. Although,
Lamb versus
what is it?
The Twin Peaks pilot.
What, the new one?
No.
Like,
the
original.
The original pilot, Twin Peaks.
Oh, okay. Sure. Yeah. No, that's sorry. I thought you meant
it'll be weird next week.
Yeah, that's gonna be interesting.
Yay! Yes. He's got the box set. Excellent.
Yeah. Okay.
I think the pilot's about an hour and a half. I think it's feature length, so it's.
So
I watched that the last time I watched that was in film studies.
The Lamb versus Twin Peaks pilot. Wow.
Brilliantly weird. I can't wait. It's gonna be great.
That's gonna be.
And we've got to watch Mutant Blast. Which I'm really...
Sorry, I forgot about that one. Oh dear. Mutant Blast.
Okay, Larry, before we wrap this up, because we've had talking bollocks for the last hour and a half. Dead Snow.
Yeah. Okay.
Did you watch it?
Yes, I do. Well, I've seen it.
Because I know Dan wants to know your thoughts on Dead Snow.
Oh, okay. I'll give you my quick rundown. I think it's a fantastic film for the budget it was on as well. I also think I'm a huge fan if a film knows what it is. I don't mind if I'm going into a film that's called like, Melon's Attack from Space. And then I watch that. I watched that film, for instance, and there's like, for me, there's two different categories. If a film knows what it is, and then if a film's trying to like be something where sometimes it lands where you go, that was something that I didn't think it was going to be. So with Dead Snow, I think it's one of those perfect films similar to Drag Me to Hell, where it knows what it is and it has fun with the premise. I think if I remember, it came out around the time that Call of Duty had their Nazi zombies, you know.
That would make sense.
And I remember thinking, is this tied to that? And watching it, I was actually so happy it wasn't, because I got kind of confused when I saw the trailer. I was like, oh, this is going to be Call of Duty, you know, Nazi zombies, where they got to do a bunch of other stuff. And yeah, no, I really like it. I think the deaths are fantastic. I think one of the deaths is my favorite, which I mentioned, I think, where this poor fucking mate, he is shitting himself going like, it's zombie Nazis, and then gets shoved through a window and just ripped apart. I also, there's one part in it, I guess if I had any negatives, my only negatives is that I think the film by itself, for me personally, is great. I'm not a fan of the sequels. I know that there are sequels and they are beloved, but for me, I was like, after the first one, I was like, it's a standalone for me. But I also think as well, but it's one of the things I do love about it, so it's a 50-50. There's like a guy or character in it, if I remember, who gets his arms cut off. He gets bitten, then on like he like cuts his arm off, gets bitten, and then does that, and it's like, yeah, cool, and then gets bitten again, cuts his arm off. So yeah, I would give it a solid 7 out of 10. Same with Drag Me to Hell. And that's, I don't think there's any really like bad factors.
Was that Norwegian? That film? Was it Norwegian, Swedish? Was it Norwegian? I can't remember. I did have one question. I forgot to bring it up last week. But there was a scene where they go out, where Matey, the biggest lad, goes out to the toilet and ends up having a dump, and then making
having
love.
A shit, yeah, and then having sex
while he's kind of
having a shit.
Is that a Swedish or Norwegian thing? That like, I don't personally. That is not. In the UK, that's not normal.
Yeah, I've missed that.
It might be a big old European thing.
To all of us Swedish, all of us Swedish listeners, please tell us if you shit.
I haven't seen that in any of the Scandi noirs, you know.
No, maybe they're very busy in life generally, where they got to get 2 or 3 things done at once. So they're having sex, having a shit, and eating at the same time.
I think
they need to get everything done.
I think it's just probably
or is that just the film? It's not.
I think that's just the film. I would like
found that
to say,
quite
hopefully.
odd. I found that quite odd, that scene. It's Norwegian. Thanks, Dan. So yeah, sorry if I've upset any Norwegian listeners, viewers. Yeah, I find that quite odd. So anyway,
but yeah, round up. Yeah, it's
a good film.
It's
a very good film.
I think they should do, what would be cool is they should do more, not more of that, because I think that film by itself, but what I'd love to see, and I know this kind of goes against what you said a minute ago, but I guess it's a bit different because it's not like a series, but I'd love to see like another 2 films that take a concept and do something like that and put it as like, you get 3 separate films, kind of similar to what the French horror films do with like Switchblade Romance, Martyrs. I'd love to see something like that. For me, I watched the second one and it didn't live up. It kind of felt like a little bit of like a, this did all right.
That Red versus Dead, wasn't it? Something like that.
Dead. Yeah, and that's what I mean. Like the first one is such a good premise of they want their gold kind of thing. It's like, and I just think the second one and whatever, and I wouldn't be surprised if there's spin-offs. So, but yeah, no, good. It was really good.
So, okay. Next week, we will be back, oh my God, with our episode 73, Lamb versus the Twin Peaks pilot. I can't even say it. What? I've actually written Twin Pilots pilot. So Twin Peaks pilot, which it's great, actually. So just a quick one for Dan. Oh yes, wish I could tell you about the countless times I've taken a shit outside and girls have banged me at the same time. It's a very Swedish thing. So
Nice. Nice.
It's in all the guidebooks. It's,
So rule one.
I've got to go to Sweden, I think, to experience the shitting outside and girls having sex with me.
Why do you want to go
end the podcast?
That's what I mean. It's like, why do you want to go to Sweden? It's like, oh, there's amazing things, great sights. But the real reason is I want to go and take a shit.
Yeah, I can see the advert. Yeah, some bloke sat on a toilet. Like,
yeah, with the
visit Sweden.
yeah,
Sweden.
with the trailer audio over the top, like, come visit Sweden, where you can take the finest shits and get the finest at the same time.
On that note,
and on that note, we will see you all later. Thanks
right,
for
bye.
watching. See you later.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.